Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Hussein, I think your
Yeah,
audio is
sorry.
off.
How are you doing, Ustaz?
Okay.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
So you are at home?
Yeah,
Inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. How's the audio? Is it alright?
Yeah, Alhamdulillah, it's still okay. I'll get you late if the audio is cracking, inshallah. So we're gonna continue with chapter 8 today, Ustaz.
Yes, this is on the dhikrillah, yes? The remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is
Yes,
that right?
inshallah. Okay, inshallah, over to you. Let's
Bismillah.
begin with the niyat already.
Okay.
Fadal, Ustaz, inshallah.
نستعين. Yes. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وصحبه أجمعين. We resume, inshallah, today our reading of the Risalatul Mu'awanah wal Mudaharah wal Mu'azarah liraghibin min al-mu'minin fi suluki tariqil akhirah. The book of assistance for those amongst the believers who wishes to thread the path of akhirah. So Imam Abdullah bin Alawi al-Haddad continues to speak about the importance of dhikrillah, or the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وينبغي أن يكون لك ورد من ذكر الله تعالى تحده بوقت أو تحصره بعدد وحينئذ فلا بأس بالسبحة لضبط العدد. You must have, according to Imam bin Alawi al-Haddad, a daily practice or a regular devotion which is a particular amount, and that you would count, yes, the amount that you would read. And in these times, yes, in Imam Haddad's times, and of course before that, it is all right. He says, "Fala ba'as bis-subha." Yes, it is all right to use a tasbih, we call it so the subha, to use that is fine. Yes, because of course there were debates surrounding it. There were some amongst them who feel that it is an innovation. Well, that the fact that it is an innovation is not doubted, yes. But whether it is a blameworthy or a praiseworthy innovation is another matter. But we know that what is narrated of the Prophet ﷺ is that he would count using his fingers, and he would count based on the mifsal, yani the every finger would have its distinct parts that you can count. Say your tasbihat. So basically, the act of counting to transfer it from the finger to the tasbih, according to the most of the ulama of the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, it is not problematic. Wa'lam, no, therefore, and dhikr, but most important is that you have dhikr. Yes, you have dhikr. As for the term dhikr, it comprises both remembrance as well as pronunciation by the tongue. Yes, it encompasses both, which is why in the Malay text they sometimes translate dhikr as menyebut, and sometimes they translate dhikr as mengingat. But the Arabic dhikr basically comprises both, except for the fact that since the adhkar is, or the dhikr is of several stages, which we will discuss when we read this passage, namely that there is the dhikr of the tongue, then there is the dhikr of the heart, and the tongue, and then there is the dhikr of the heart alone, and so on. So therefore, the word remembrance is chosen. Wa'alam, that is a main pillar, is one of the strongest pillars of the tariq. And tariq means your journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes. So if you wish to tread a path which you wish to arrive at the rida of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then dhikr is a component that you cannot do without. There is no such thing as a person, yes, who wishes to draw close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala but leaves behind dhikr as one of its rukun. It is one of the most effective arkan of the tariqah. There are, of course, other arkan, and there are, of course, other paths. There is, in fact, what you call the path of the malamatiyah, for example, that they prioritize service, khidmah of mankind as a rukun of the tariqah. Some other turuq, for example, would prioritize the recitation of the Quran and perhaps the performance of the nawafil. And Imam Abdullah bin Alawi al-Haddad is not saying that you do not do the other things if you do the dhikr. But the path of the Al-Ba'alawi, since it derives from the Quran and the prophetic sunnah, yes, is a path which is, according to Imam Haddad, the one that is most balanced, because it takes on dhikr, it takes on khidmah, it takes on the recitation of the Quran, it takes on the supererogatory prayers and the supererogatory fasts, yes, as part and parcel of the tariqah. Of course, when we say that all these things, it does not mean that the wajib is not done. Yes, we say that of those who wishes to take the tariqah are those who basically have understood that the tariqah is in addition to the performance of the Sharia, meaning to say it is for those of those who have high himmah, yes, of those with great ambitions, yes, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, great love, yes, as in the Adab Sulukin Murid, Imam Haddad mentions that if there's a strong drive within you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given for you to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then there are proper manners and proper etiquette, there's proper conduct that he can guide you through this Adab Sulukil Murid. Yes, and so dhikr is an important rukun. And dhikr is an important key. Yes, because an important key towards verification. And what is tahqiq? Yes, let us say that al-haq, yes, as a word in the Quran, as Professor Attas translates it into English, is that which is true and real. Yes, for us, we know that the act of Islam, of submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is of various grades and manifestation. Yes, there are those who begin by the profession of the tongue. Yes, profession of the tongue, and then as a sign of that which is affirmed by the heart, and then verified by your actions. We know ourselves, however, due to the internal windows of our soul that we are privy to, that sometimes we merely claim our submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, while we portray in front of mankind our apparent submissiveness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inwardly and secretly, we still continue to perform ma'asiyah, for example. Yes, and so therefore that is not a person who has reached the station of tahqiq. Yes, the station of tahqiq is a person who can truly say, inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alamin. Yes, so that's tahqiq. Yes, because otherwise then there are always degrees of nifaq. Yes, there are degrees of nifaq. In some cases, it becomes overwhelming. Yes, like those who oppose the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in private, those who oppose the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam during his rule of Medina. Yes, amongst the followers of Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul. Yes, these are the munafiqeen who, when they speak, they lie. When they are given trust, they betray, and when they promise, yes, they do not fulfill. They are those who, amongst the signs of nifaq in themselves, is that when the call to prayer is called, yes, they wake up or they get up to salah in a very lazy manner. And when they do perform their prayers, they perform their prayers to seek, yes, the praises of man. Yes, they do so out of riya, let us say. So that's nifaq. Certainly, nifaq is the opposite of tahqiq. Yes, so therefore, the person who has reached of tahqiq in his iman, tahqiq in his Islam, tahqiq in his ihsan are those who have truly arrived, yes, at the station of siddiqiyah, yes, the station of truthfulness, the station of honesty and sincerity in following the path, amongst which, of course, the highest in the prophetic ummah is Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, acknowledged by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he was given the title as Siddiq. Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq is reported to have said, Lawla Rabbi, ma'araftu Rabbi. Had it not been for my Lord, I wouldn't have known my Lord. Yes. Whereas the rest of us, those who came after him, we all say, Lawla al-Murabbi. Yes. Ma'araftu Rabbi. Had it not been because of our teachers, we would know our Lord. But Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, as an attestation of his high maqam, as an attestation of his consistency in munajat, in adhkar, in ibadat to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is given knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directly by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes. So therefore, if you wish to attain to that, yes, the key, yes, how can a person become a true, obedient servant and slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and not a pseudo slave, not a pretender? Yes, how do you overcome, yes, being an imposter? Every day we look into the mirror and we know there are times in which, yes, the internal Mr. Hyde comes out, yes, and we say to ourselves, if only there is a portion that we can take, yes, if only there is a portion that we can take that can remove us of this internal Mr. Hyde, yes, or internal Hulk sometimes, yes. Now, in our cases, there are, there are internal Hulks, there are internal uh, Mr. Hyde, yes. The Hulk is hiding to such an extent that whenever you are provoked, and sometimes even without provocation, you act in anger, you allow yourself to become servants of the demons. Yes, waliyadu billah. So if you wish to overcome this, yes, without tafqiq, wasilahul muridin. So it is a pillar, I mean to say, like like a sail, when or like when there is a boat, it is to set sail. Basically, you require the dhikr, and then it is also the key to tahqiq, and thirdly, it is also the silah, it is also the weapon of the muridin. Yes, those who desire Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you must carry with yourselves weapons that can protect you, yes, against brigands. Who are the brigands? It is the shaitan, the nafs, yes, always ready, yes, to pounce on caravans without protection. And your adhkar is your protection. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, wa manshuril wilayah. Yes, and also it is the let us say, the requirements of wilayah. So if we seek the company of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we seek his protection, then be in a constant state of dhikr. Kama qala ba'dul arifin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran, "Fadhkuruni adhkurukum," and remember me, mention my name, and I shall mention you, and I shall remember you. Yes, of course, when we say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remembers us, it means we are kept in the vicinity of his mercy. Yes, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala remembers us, we are kept under the protection of his angels. We are kept under the protection of his ilham rabbani. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protects us in the ilham rabbani by showering us with spiritual ma'ani, with spiritual meaning, such that every betrayal of the tawbah, and secondly, it is also in the form of spiritual meaning and insights that guide you. And of course, if we were to use a more modern imagery, if you've seen the that tells you the coming danger, yes, and which you can use to escape then you listen to the call. Yes. So the Ashabul Azkar will be protected in their decisions, will be protected in their desires, will be protected in their actions. وَقَالَ تَعَالَى فَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا وَعَلَى جُنُوبِكُمْ. How often and in what state should you have the dhikr? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said you should do so standing, you should do so sitting, you should do so while you're lying on your side. Yes. In other words, according to Ibn Abbas, who gave an interpretation, an exegesis of this verse, said that it means that you ought to these three positions exhausts the positions of mankind. Yes. Of course, other than these three positions, if you're not standing, sitting, or lying down, everything in between are very awkward positions to be in a long time. Yes, unless you're doing, some sort of exercise like yoga. But that too, it would be in one of these three. You are to have dhikr while traveling, and and while being stationary. You ought to have adhkar while you are on land or on sea, and in more recent times we add even while you're traveling, in the air. Yeah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says, وَقَالَ اللَّهُ تَعَالَى يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ ذِكْرًا كَثِيرًا. So, the first is the general command. Yes, remember me and I shall remember you. The second is to subhanahu wa ta'ala in all the positions. Yes, in all your actions. And that's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said. Remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a lot. Yes, remember Him a lot. And we will take the three verses together. Yes, remember Him a lot. In every, He will remember you, and you shall always be in His protective care. Allah ta'ala, meaning to say it is a hadith Quds. As the Prophet said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ana inda dhanni abdi bi. I am according to the opinion of my servants. Yes, I shall act with my servants based on how my servant perceives me. Yes, wa ana ma'ahu hina yadhkuruni, and I will be with him. I am with him. I am together with him in the moments where he mentions me. Yes, if you speak to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is listening to you. Subhanallah. If you are asking something from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes, if you're seeking forgiveness, if you are confessing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you're treating Him as your confessor, then no, sincerely, that is in fact, you're talking to Him. Yes, that's why it is a state of excellence. That's why the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam describes it of excellence. Yes, it is the state of excellence is no longer cognitive belief. The state of excellence is no longer performative actions by the body. The state of excellence is a transformation of one's being. Transformation of one's being is to perceive the world by the expansion of its horizons. In other words, the spiritual organ of cognition, which is the qalb, is now perceiving reality differently. You are now seeing reality no longer as composed of substances and accidents. You're no longer seeing reality as composed of the day-to-day objects, of the animal, the vegetal, and the mineral kingdoms, of atoms in motion, of human beings, of various desires and inclinations. Your perception of reality is the affirmation of the omnipresence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The affirmation of the omnipresence, omnibenevolence, and omniscience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In other words, that He is everywhere. Yes, He is everywhere, seeing you, perceiving you, knowing you. He speaks to you, that He addresses you. That is the state of dhikr. Yes, the state of dhikr is a different level of consciousness. Yes, that's why Ana inda dhanni abdi bi. Yes, and if by implication, yes, if you are not thinking, if you're not contemplating Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're alone or in public, that means you do not have an opinion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning to say, you're not opining about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you're not opining about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how do you think He's going to be with you? Yes. In truth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-awwal wal-akhir wal-zahir wal-batin. He is the beginning and the end. He is also present and hidden. He is present around us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore, good opinions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Have a good opinion that He is now taking care of you. Have a good opinion that He forgives you. Have a good opinion that He will save you at the end of the road. وَأَنَا مَعْهُ حِينَ يَذْكُرُنِي, and I am with Him for as long as He is remembering me. And if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is your friend, then who will be your enemy? فَإِنْ ذَكَرَنِي فِي نَفْسِهِ ذَكَرْتُهُ فِي نَفْسِهِ. If He remembers me on His own, alone, let us say, then I shall do so also. Meaning to say, as He mentions me, I shall mention Him. If He remembers me, I shall remember Him. Meaning to say, if He opens the door of communication with me, I shall open my door of communication with Him. وَإِنْ ذَكَرَنِي فِي مَلَئٍ, and if He were to mention me in a gathering, yes, in a gathering of people with friends, then I shall mention Him in a gathering superior to that. Yes. Allahu Akbar. فِي مَلَئٍ خَيْرٌ مِّنْهُ. And what is the gathering which is superior to our gatherings? It is the gatherings of the hosts. The gathering of the hosts. The gathering of the angels. Yes. The gathering of angels who are created by, some of whom are created in a state of prostration. Some of whom are created in a state of genuflection. Some of whom are created in a state of tasbih. Some of whom are the sayyarin, yes, those who travel the earth looking for the majalisul ilm. They will stack up upon it, layer upon layer upon layer upon layer, and reaches the heavens. Yes, and some of whom report of such blessings and gatherings. Certainly, there are some of those who would attend specific the majalis of the awliya, including the words that they have penned, including, of course, without shak, without doubt, if we are reading from the books of Abdullah ibn Ala al-Haddad, there will be some angels who come to the respect of Imam Abdullah ibn Ala al-Haddad. If we are listening to his words, if we are trying to understand his words, and if we are trying to explain it to others, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ease our tongues to express spiritual meanings, and Allah will ease our hearts if we are sincere and we are present to understand some of these spiritual realities. Allah. وقال عليه السلام, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, يقول الله تعالى, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, أنا جليس من ذكرني. I am as a close companion to is remembering me. Yes. The literal translation of the jalis is a person who sits with you. Yes, and the Arabic as a language is a very rich language, but one particular aspect of which it is rich is to describe human relations. There are various words for friends. Yes, there is what you call an anis. Yes, an anis is a person that you are close with, or rather that close with, familiar with, that you are soft with. So that's an anis. Yes, a jalis is a person who sits with you. Yes, your companion in sitting. And certainly, if you were to pick a jalis, the jalis is a person who you enjoy the company. The jalis is in the books of fiqh. Yes, the jalis is the one who determines whether your clothing, whether your clothing has a hole that is acceptable or not acceptable with regards to the aura, yes, whether it breaks it or not. In other words, the jalis sits with you close enough, yes, to be able to perceive the action. The action of the face would mean the jalis who takes care of the feeling. The jalis is a person who understands your body Yes, the jalis, the person you share intimate secrets with. Allah, Allah. And is it to be the jalis of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yes, so that's why Imam Abdullah bin al-Haddad wrote in his one of his well-known poetry is the qasidah um, pertaining to wherein he said wa bi husnil dhanni ulad fa huwa khi majalisi wa anisi. Yes, and husnil dhan. Yes, and what I hold on to. Yes, in the qasidah Qatafani in Rabbi, he said, what I hold on to is my good opinion. Good opinion is my friend. Yes, good opinion is my friend. Good opinion is my anis. Yes, my khil. Yes, my close friends, my khalil. Yes, that's the good opinion. Because why? He holds that with regards to his Lord Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Tula layli wa nahari. Throughout the lengthy nights, throughout the long nights of winter and long days of summer. In other words, all the time, I hold good opinion of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. وقال عليه السلام, and the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم also said, ألا أنبئكم بخير أعمالكم وأزكاها عند ملككم وأرفعها في درجاتكم وخير لكم من إنفاق الذهب والورق ومن أن تلقوا عدوكم فتضربوا أعناقهم ويضربوا أعناقكم قالوا بلى قال ذكرها. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم asked his companions, shall I not inform you of the best actions, yes, of the best act of devotion, and its purest, yes, to the in the sight of your Creator, and the highest in ranks, and that which is better even than to give out gold and silver in the Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and to encounter your enemy, and for you to strike their necks, and they were to strike your necks. Of course, the Sahaba, yes, who has been attuned to the value system of the Quran, whose views have been shaped by the Quran, certainly would like to know, because they would know value. Their notion of the value of things is not determined by their nafs. It is not determined by its price in gold or silver. It's not determined, certainly, وَلِذِكْرٍ ثَمَرَةٍ. And for dhikr, yes, there are fruits, there are results. You can expect, let us say, there are returns to investment, and there are dhikr. يَجِدُهَا. Who will find the returns to the investment? And it is not sufficient. The least, yes, the least of the returns of one's investment in dhikr is that he will be able to taste its sweetness. Literally tasting its sweetness. His spirit will be awakened, his spiritual appetite will be awakened, and he will feel every dhikr that descends upon his heart a kind of pleasure of which nothing of the physical world can equate. Nothing of the physical world can psychology. necessarily understood to be physical.
Ustaz, Assalamualaikum. I think your voice is breaking, Ustaz. I think we lost him.
Satisfies the body, but yes. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, but we lost you like a minute ago.
Okay. Oh, so I was describing how in Islamic psychology we explain that the human body can can taste, yes, can taste things physically, but it produces a state of affect, and affect or emotion is basically spiritual. Yes, it's psychological. Yes, basically food or nothing. Fear, uh, hope, and so on and so forth. So likewise, yes, that
Ustaz, sorry, sorry to interrupt you, but I think give me one sec and let me try to text Ustaz. Yes. Assalamualaikum Ustaz.
all right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we lost you at the point where you were mentioning what the psychological state of human that.
Ah, I suppose maybe some of these things, the bandwidth is not big enough to carry some of these things.
That's so.
Allah Akbar. So that means you have to come to Talim to actually hear some
Oh,
things
inshallah,
that
inshallah,
was
inshallah.
mixed.
I think it's there.
Uh,
I think I'll be there soon.
Inshallah. Well, so as I was saying that uh, we would well, I'll try one final attempt. So basically, in Islamic psychology, we mentioned that man is both body and soul. He is a third being composed of both aspects, and the soul, which is the psychological, spiritual aspect, this experiences affect, yes, or what you call emotional effects of the things deriving both from the spiritual and the physical realm. Of the physical realm, you said that we enjoy things which are physical, like food, yes, ingested into the body, and it produces what we call satiety, yes. Things also include beautifully arranged sound as music. Yes, it goes into the hearing and it produces movement inside the affect. Then there is the vision of scenic, scenic things that is observed by the eye, and it equally produces things in the affect. And of this, we also describe that of human relations, there are certain things which are not physical in nature, but produces affects in the soul, like friendship, like marriage, like familial relations, and so on and so forth. These produces affects in the soul. So now, just as all these produces affects in the soul, and due to our nature as spirit, even the spiritual goods that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants to the servant of his choice will also produces affect. Yes, and this affect include the feelings of calmness, serenity. Yes, and this is what is described by Professor Naqib Attas as true sa'ada. Yes, happiness. Yes, sa'ada is certainty of the truth and the actions, yes, that proceed from such a certainty. And of course, when we say certainty of the truth, and then there are actions that proceed from it, this situation of a person who is now in a state of sa'ada will produce spiritual effects. They are of various grades. This is of various grades, and you cannot describe, for example, the extent of the happiness of a servant who's experiencing the pleasure of adhkar. Yes, we cannot describe it. We cannot compare it. Yes, in the same way as some of the Sufis, they say that you can only describe the color white to a blind person using references, but he will never be able to actually understand it. And you can describe the sweetness of sugar only to a certain extent by using comparisons. But until you taste it, you cannot know what it is. Yes. And similarly, therefore, with regards to spiritual experience, they say halawatu dhikr, kemanisan dhikr. But really, is it sweet like honey? It is not sweet like honey. Is it sweet like sugar? Is it sweet like candy? Well, it is a sweetness because we know that it is not bitter. We know it is sweetness because we know that it is not sour. We know that it is not pain. But let us say that companionship between mankind would yield a better comparison. But even then, that better comparison would not be anything compared to the direct experience of dhawq, yes, the dhawq of adhkar. And we know, of course, of the amongst the Sada al-Ba'alawi, amongst the Sufis, they are people, yes, who enjoy the adhkar to the extent that we say, well, why is it that they do 20,000 La ilaha illallah and 100,000 Ya Allah and so on and so forth? Is it basically just, are they looking to finish? No. On the one hand, yes, when they are in the beginning of their path, they set themselves a certain number. But once they are now enjoying the investment, they are basically just enjoying themselves. Yes. Do you count? Yes. Do you count, for example, companions? Do you count the words that you've read? Yes. If you're reading an excellent novel. وَلَذَّةُ مَا يَسْتَحْقِرُ فِيهِ. Yes. And it is a pleasure. It is a delicacy of anything in the pleasures of the world. Yes. Everything in the pleasures of the world will pale. Yes. Comparison compared to the experiences, the effect producing adhkar. وَعَلَاهَا أَيَّفْنَا بِالْمَذْكُورِ اللَّهُ أَكْبَرُ. Yes, وَعَلَاهَا. The highest grade, the highest pleasure of dhikr is that you find yourself in a state of extinction. Yes, you become extinguished, meaning to say, you lose self-consciousness, you lose the experience of yourself. Yes, to use analogies, it is as if you become a pillar of salt that's fallen. Yes, of course, young lovers, they say that, isn't it? Sometimes when, let us say that a young husband were to use his words, let us say he's a word craft, who's also sincere and honest, He may say, he may compose some beautiful lines of poetry, yes, and he strings it like archery, yes. He takes out every word as if from the quiver, yes, directed directly to the heart of his beloved. Yes, every let us say arrow struck on the chest of his beloved, yes, she becomes a martyr. Allah, Allah. Yes, she becomes his martyr. Yes, every arrow struck. And sometimes, the younger ones whose words or whose vocabulary is more restricted, they say she melts. Yes, she melts in the pleasure of his words. Yes, but none of this is in comparison to the act of Allah Subhanahu wa Taala showering us with the blessings of His generosity and love. If He were to shower us with the blessings of His generosity and love, there are those who lose consciousness. There are those who lose their sanity. There are those who, in a state of their ecstasy, yes, utter ecstatic statements like the Shatahat. Yes, as we know in the books of the Sufis, some of these are scandalous words, but they are to be interpreted properly within the framework of the tasawwuf, within the framework of a proper aqidah. Yes, some of them they say in a state of let us say inebriation or in a state of intoxication. Some of them they may say, laisa fi jubbati siwallah. Yes, there is none within my cloak except God. Well, of course, they don't mean that God has descended and entered into his cloak. In other words, in my chest, in the mirror of my heart, I have extinguished my own desire, I have extinguished my own self, I have lost consciousness of myself, and I only observe the spiritual gifts of my beloved. And similarly, another one may say, I am he, yes, I am he because there is no longer me, yes. But that again, as Sheikh Nuruddin Ar-Rahiri has explained in the Lata'if al-Asrar li Ahlillah al-Atiyar, that is like an ironsmith, yes, like an ironsmith with steel, and he takes an object, let us say a beautiful sword, and he puts it in the furnace, and then he puts it in the water. He knocks it, and then when in a state of when it is in the furnace, it is being burnt at high temperatures. It takes on the quality of the fire without the fire entering into the let us say this object, and then in
Ustaz, Assalamualaikum.
yes, وَمَقَعَدُ
Hello.
مطرق الرأس ثم ذكر الله بقلب الحاضر وأتواصل. نعم. Hello.
Yeah, just when you
Okay.
have
Did you
it,
lose me a long time ago? Just
when you're explaining the
when I started
blacksmith.
reading the Arabic. Oh well. Okay. So did I finish? Did you capture the entire blacksmith analogy?
Not quite. Sorry, it's too heavy, and then the connection
Okay.
gets
All
cut.
right. Okay. Again. Well. Okay. So since it's almost 10 here, and I have a class after this. This will be my last attempt, inshallah. So basically, the basic analogy of the blacksmith, as I said, the blacksmith, he works with iron, and then he strikes the iron, then he puts it in the furnace, and then he takes it out and he puts it in water or something as a cooling agent. When he puts it in the furnace, now this you imagine that the temperatures would rise and let us say that that iron object or that steel object would then take on some of the attributes of the fire without the fire losing any of its attributes. Yes, and without the steel becoming the fire. But were it conscious in that state, yes, it would imagine itself to be fire, although it is not. Yes, it remains in its state, and the fire remains in its state. And then when it cools, yes, it reaches the state of no longer being intoxicated. It realizes it remains itself all the while. So that's the explanation of the fana fillah. That meaning to say you never for a point of time become Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, neither he you. But in other words, you experience the realities of things, and you experience the loss of your own self. In the same way as Professor Attas gives another more reason. If you read a very good novel, sometimes you might be so much into the pages and the chapters until you lose feeling in your feet. Yes, until you lose the feeling in your feet. And you can imagine if it was much more intense. Yes, much more intense. Uh, you forget your own existence. You become absorbed, as it were, within the story and narrative. Wallahu a'lam. I think that is how much we wish to share today. And due to the interest of time also, let us see, inshallah.
Jazakumullah khair, Ustaz. Inshallah, you want to end with at-tibul Fatiha, Ustaz? Let me just end with the dua, inshallah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbana fa'na bima 'allamtana rabbi 'alim. Yes. No, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
No, please, you can continue with the dua.
ربنا انفعنا بما علمتنا ربي علمنا الذي ينفعنا ربي فقنا فقه أهلنا وقربات لنا في ديننا مع أهل القدر ومنسى وذكر ربي وفقهم لما ترتضي قولا وفعلا كرما وارزق كل حلالا دائما وأخلاته يا علماء نحظى بالخير ونكفى كل شر ربنا أصلح لنا كل شؤون وأخر رب الرضا منك العيون واقض عنا ربنا كل الديون قبل أن تأتينا رسل المنون وفرست أنت أكرم من ستر وصلاة الله تخشى المصطفى من إله قد عنا ووفى بكتاب في الشفاء وعلى الكرام الشرفاء ونصب نصب الغراء اللهم اهدنا بهداك واجعلنا ممن يسار في رضاك ولا تولنا وليا سواك ولا تجعلنا ممن خلف امرك وعصاك حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل ولا حول ولا قوة الا بالله العلي العظيم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه وسلم الحمد لله رب العالمين.
فاتحة القبول عن كل سوء ومأمور وصلاح شأن ظاهر وباطنا في الدين والدنيا والآخرة دافعة لكل شر جالبة لكل خير لنا ولأحبابنا ولوالدينا وبنية أن الله ينور قلوبنا وقوالبنا مع التقى والهدى والعفاء والغنى والموت على دين الإسلام والإيمان. إلى المحن ونمتين فاتحة. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله. جميل جدا.